Charyaparyantam Vande Guru Paramparam. Om. Patiman sir, I think Dr. Sagar Garu is there, so he could start off the.
Okay. Dr. Sagar, can you hear us? Dr.
I can go continue and then uh, probably
Yeah, please. Yeah.
Sanatha Dr. Sagar Garu. We don't want to keep everybody waiting. We'll start off. Dear friends, just for if any of you have not heard the two earlier talks, I had set a scene where an anchor of Pratibha Mancha Chetana Anand, we gave the name Chetana Anand. Chetana is the Sanskrit term for consciousness, and one who revels in the experience of consciousness is Ananda. So the Chetana Anand, she is our anchor, and she has always heard about Adi Shankara constantly in all media, in social platforms, everywhere. So, in that mood, she actually goes to bed and then she sleeps off and she gets into a dream. And in that dream, she actually goes to the time of Adi Shankara. And then, so that means in her dream, she is actually in the presence of Adi Shankara. In the last two classes, we have seen that she actually meets not only Adi Shankaracharya but also all other contemporaries, including his mother, his Guru Govinda Bhagavad Pada, and then she has come to Varanasi, and it is in Varanasi that she is continuing her conversations and her presence in in the class that Bhagavan Adi Shankaracharya is teaching. So that is the set. So we are still in her dream, and then her report of all the dream is what we are listening to. So when we left last month, you may recall that she had followed Bhagavan Adi Shankara to the Dundi Ganapati temple in Varanasi. And then Acharya stands in front of the Ganapati and then he bursts out into an extraordinary prayer, Ajam Nirvikalpam, Nirakaramekam, Niranandam Anandam Advaita Purnam, Param Nirgunam Nirvishesham Nirikam, Parabrahma Rupam Ganesham Bhajema. So if you look at the construction of this beautiful, very, very well known prayer, the first three lines and the first half of the fourth line, all of them point to the absolute reality, Parabrahman, which is the nature of which is Ajam, unborn, Nirvikalpam, which will never change, Nirakaram, it has no form, and there is only one, there is no two Ekam, and then one who is not subject to the mood swings. One day the person is very happy and upbeat, and another day the person is down, and such mood swings are not there. That is the meaning of the word Niranandam. And then which means that always in a state of non-dual state of joy, Anandam, and then who is complete, that means no gap whatsoever, which is Purnam, and no two, Advaitam, and who is beyond everything, Param, and then free and are transcending all the three gunas, sattva, rajas, tamo gunas, nirgunam, And then there is no residue. There is no residue means there is no other than Parabrahman, and who has absolutely no expectation, no desire whatsoever, nirikam, and such Parabrahma Rupam. Up to that, the all of them are attributes of absolute Parabrahman, which means there is not even form. But he is standing in front of the Murti of Ganesha, Ganapati, which has got form. And then he immediately concludes the verse Ganesham Bhajema. So this intrigues our anchor Chetana. And then she had asked a question of the Acharya. Bhagavan, all these that you have talked about, Ajam, Nirvikalpam, Nirakaram, Ekam, all of these you have talked about, they are indicating the absolute. So, is it not natural for you to conclude also with the statement that I am actually contemplating on the absolute, but suddenly you are concluding by using a form? Because as soon as there is a form, in Sanskrit is called rupa, there has to be a nama, there is a name. So anything that has got a name and form is finite in nature. So it has got a time of birth, it has got death. This is true of Ganapati also. So what do we do on Vinayaka Chaturthi day? In Bhadrapada Shukla Chaturthi, we actually go and bring a murti of Ganapati made of clay, and then we worship it for 1 day or 10 days, as the case may be. And at the end, we take it and then actually immerse it and melt it away in a water body. That means at some point of time, the clay was combined to make the murti of Ganapati, and later on it returns to the original clay form. So wherever there is name and form, there is always creation and it will be destroyed. And there is a period of existence also. But you are also talking about the infinite, beginningless, endless, formless. And how can I reconcile? You are juxtaposing the form with the formless. How can I understand this, Sir Bhagavan? Um, so when this question came up, Bhagavan Shankaracharya smiled and then he said, Chetana, you must understand that there are twofold techniques of meditating on Parabrahman. How do you meditate on the absolute? You have to meditate through the concrete, and then you must go transcend beyond that. There are two techniques of knowing, and those two techniques are called the Sarupa Lakshana and Tatastha Lakshana. And then last month, in our observation of Chetana's dream, she had asked this question and said, Bhagavan, please teach me what is this Swarupa Lakshana and what is this Tatastha Lakshana. You remember by that time, it was time for the Acharya to sit for his evening meditation, and therefore we also had to wait for him to come out of his dhyana. And now the time has come, and the Acharya has come out of his dhyana, and then he said, he was about to start. What was the state of Chetana's mind? So she was expecting to know this concept of how to understand the absolute of through Swarupa Lakshana and Tatastha Lakshana, but she had to wait. So she could not sleep all night. What an interesting concept. She's already sleeping. She is in a dream. And in the dream, she cannot sleep. Is this not Maya? We are in the wakeful state, we go and sleep. Wonderful. But she is sleepless in sleep. And that is the state that a state of Maya state, she will realize about this when she really wakes up. So next morning, after they had all completed the morning ablutions and prayers and everything, Bhagavan Shankara sat down for the day's teaching. Now, here is an interesting situation. Even though uh, earlier a student has asked a question of the Guru, and then the answer could not come immediately, so they meet at another time. At that another time also the student has to ask the question, please teach me, otherwise the teacher will not teach. This is the methodology of Vedanta Shravana. Without constant request of the student, please teach, the teacher will not teach. The reason is, it is possible that the student has lost interest in the subject, and then if there is no interest in the subject, the teacher should not continue and force the knowledge on anyone. So, how to make sure that the interest is sustaining? So, the student must ask again. So, she asks again, Bhagavan, you mentioned yesterday that one should know the Swarupa Lakshana and the Tatastha Lakshana, the two concepts for comprehending the idea of Brahman. Please teach. Then the Acharya said, in this verse that I chanted yesterday, Ajam Nirvikalpam Nirakaramekam, I have described the nature of Brahman in the first three lines. This method is called Swarupa Lakshana. Then when I said Ganesham Bhajema, let us adore Ganesha, Ganesha has a visible form, the Murti with appropriate attributes. Do you remember I pointed out to you that this form indicates Om? So Ganesha Murti is pointing to the sound Om, and that Om actually is the Tatastha Lakshana. And you see the visible form of Ganapati, look at it as symbolizing Om, which is pointing to the absolute unity, Ajam Nirvikalpa. So this was very intriguing to Chaitanya. She could not understand this methodology. So then she asked, what is this your style of teaching, sir? I would like to understand. For that, the Acharya said, in defining anything, we can do in one of three ways. The first kind is called Vyatireka Lakshana. Vyatireka Lakshana means by distinguishing one thing with others. For example, you will show a TV, a television, and then you will show your mobile phone. Though both of them can display pictures, still in its nature, in the way a television works and in the way in which your mobile phone works are different, and therefore we point out two apparently similar devices, and then we say, here is the difference. This is called as Vyatireka Lakshana, by distinguishing one from the other. So what have Sanatana Dharma done? Sanatana Dharma has designed a variety of devatas, each devata having a distinctive form, and therefore Ganesha's Murti is distinct from the Murti of Vishnu, distinct from the Murti of Shiva, and therefore we start assigning specific roles. Ganesha removes obstacles, Vishnu preserves, creates, Brahma creates, Shiva destroys. So different devatas, different prayers. And from each one of them, we can reach the absolute. Chaitanya says, Bhagavan Shankara, I have shown you a method by talking about Ganapati. Similarly, you can actually stand in front of any of the devatas use the attributes of that particular devata, and then you actually reach the highest. The second methodology of teaching, as I mentioned already, is tatastha lakshana. What we do is we start listing all the attributes. This is what we do when we do the Attottara, 108 names, when we do the Sahasranama, 1008 names, and then contemplate that you are beginningless, you are endless. And this method, a very, very important theory that is established in the Advaita Vedanta of Adi Shankara, is the Adhyaropa Apavada theory. Adhyaropa Apavada means you impose on a particular entity a quality, a characteristic. It's called adhyaropa. And then you remove that quality, it is called apavada. I will give you one example. Chaitanya, says Bhagavan Shankara. Look at your body. Your body is sentient. If I touch any corner of your body, the small toe, and then if I were to touch you there, immediately you will realize that there is a sensation of touch in your toe. And then that means the entire body is sentient. Then you will think that the body is sentient. But then this is adhyaropa. But the same sensation is not there for a dead body. So then where was that sentiency? For a live body, there was sentiency. For a dead body, there is no sentiency. So what happened? That means sentiency is not the characteristic of the body, but it is the characteristic of Brahman. So the sentiency characteristic is superimposed on an insentient object called the body. This is called Adhyaropa. And then on examination, you remove that, it is called apavada. This is a second method of teaching subtle concepts. Then the third method is we conclude by stating directly the essential Swarupa Lakshana. Thus, Chetana, remember, there are three different ways of teaching. One is you distinguish a thing from others. Atma is distinct from Anatma. Consciousness is distinct from the body. Atma is the substratum of the phenomenal. Atma is the substratum of Anatma. And then thus Chetana started thinking. This was a bit too deep for her because there is no training. It's systematic training of thinking in Vedantic terms she had not used. So she started paused and then she started thinking. But don't forget, she's a very intelligent girl. Then she suddenly thought, oh, I can understand. Next to a magnet, suppose I keep a piece of iron. The iron behaves as though it is a magnet. The iron piece has no magnetic quality, but because it is in the presence of a magnet, it is able to display magnetic qualities. Similarly, because Atman is there, the Anatma displays sentiency. So she fell into this reverie. Then immediately the Acharya turned to the other students to teach. This is one of the things, one of the beautiful techniques that happens. You actually give something for a person to think. So they fall into the meditation. At that point of time, the teacher turns to others so that they can also be encouraged to do the contemplation. So as soon as the Acharya turned to teach others, she immediately came out of her reverie and then started listening to the Acharya with all attention. She said, she grabbed a notebook, and in that notebook, she wrote down whatever she had to think later. about the Tatastha Lakshana, about the Vyatireka Lakshana, and about the Swarupa Lakshana. This is a very important technique, especially when we are studying something so subtle as Vedanta. Lot of times we just listen and then we think that we have understood. We think that we have completely understood, but unfortunately, what happens 10 minutes later, the entire thing will escape. So, if we have to really internalize Vedanta, we should have a pen and paper before us and write down. And this was a perfect training that Chaitanya had. So she was starting taking notes because her teachers had taught her. Her teachers had taught her, if you wish to learn well, always take notes. Mere listening is not adequate. And so she continues that even in her dream. That means you can imagine how much it has entered into her DNA. Then the Acharya at that point of time was saying, the end, the goal, and the purpose of the Veda are all consolidated in the last part of the Vedas called the Upanishads. And therefore, Upanishads are called as Vedantas. Note the plural that I am using. Vedanta is philosophy. Vedantas are texts of philosophy. And the Acharya continued, for any thinking person, questions occur. I call myself I. My dear students, who is this I? I am quoting Bhagavan Shankara. Who is this I? Who is this person who is calling I? Is it the body you are calling I? Is it the life force, the prana that you are calling I? Is it your indriyas, the various sense organs you are calling as I? Is it your emotional mind that you are calling I? What are you calling I? Question number one. Question number two. What is the nature of this physical entity called Prapancha? Why did we call it as Prapancha and we also call it as Jagat? Prapancha because it is made up of Pancha, the five elements. Para, Prakarshena, perfectly assembled five elements. Prapancha. Jagat. Jaga means to move, that which is constantly moving. Question two. What is this? Why is this here? Question three. That comes from the thinking person. What is the purpose for birth and death? Why should there be birth at all? And we know that if there is birth, there is death. Why should there be birth? And why should birth always culminate in death? Why is that? And why is it that by and large, between birth and death, there is sorrow? And how can we overcome this sorrow? And how can we remain in a state of abiding peace? So many questions. And Adi Shankara is saying, I am sure these are all your questions. And the texts that actually address these are called as darshanas. And the teacher gives the definition of darshana, drishyate paramarthaha anena iti darshanam. It is a tool that reveals the highest truth. The teaching is becoming deeper and deeper. So far, Chaitanya was very comfortable in the conversation because she was very much, all the observations, the discussion, everything was going on was worldly. Here is the mother's feeling, understand. A student wanting to learn and going from teacher to teacher and finally finding a guru in Govinda Bhagavad Pada, understood. Wanting to study the text, understood. Teaching, understood. Learning, understood. But when the teaching started, she suddenly found that it was so deep, and she was almost losing herself, and she was not able to keep up with the intense style of teaching of this great Acharya. So, to put her into comfort, the Acharya said, there is one absolute Satyam, and it is called as Paramarthika Satyam. And that highest truth gets modified under circumstances because of kala, because of time, and because of desha, because of place. And therefore, this absolute truth becomes a transactional reality called the Vyavaharika truth. Then a third iteration of this truth is called Pratibhasika, apparent truth. The whole assembly was completely lost. And the teacher looked around, and he knew that nobody has understood what he has said. So he had to clarify. Then he said, look, you see, on a very hot day, when you are walking in the desert, you see a mirage, and then you presume that there is water. And as long as you are seeing the water, that water is real, it is there. That it is not water is only known later when you actually approach that area. This is because in the place where you are seeing, the angle at which you are observing, the sand that is there interacting with the light, it creates an apparent reality that there is water. This is what the Bhagavata also says, Tejo vari mrudam yatha vinimaya. Like that it is actually changing. This is called as Pratibhasika Satya. It is apparent truth. This is real. This is an experience even when we are in the wakeful state. You hear something, but what you have heard is different from what was said. This is how misunderstandings takes place. So the teacher, Shankara, is saying, as long as your ignorance of the reality is there, there is this apparent truth. But Vyavaharika truth, the transactional reality, is a little more deeper than that. Because we have to answer this question. I left my car in my garage yesterday. Then I went into deep sleep when I was not conscious of either the world or myself. And the morning when I come out, the car was exactly where I left it last night. So even though my eye was interrupted by absence of consciousness, the thing was still there. How is that possible? Does it mean to say that the world is real? For that, Acharya answers. This is one of the very important debates with other schools of Vedanta. Then he says, it is a transactional reality. It will last as long as the creation is there. And since the creation is also not permanent, even that will disappear one day. And therefore, it is only a transactional reality. But the reality we should understand is the Paramarthika reality. And again, our audience is lost because the subject is too deep. So the Acharya closes his eyes and then he says, you contemplate on this deeply. So to lighten the mood and to give time for everybody to contemplate, Chetana, good MC, you know, she's an anchor. She knows how to break the monotony. She knows how to bring back the attention of everybody. So immediately she asks a question, Bhagavan, why are you writing all these things? Why are you writing all books? People write so many books. Every day, people write books. And I have interviewed so many people who write books. And I have gone into the psychology of people who write books and asked them why they write books. They write books either for the sake of getting fame. I want to be the bestseller. It is in Sanskrit, it is called Khyati. People are after a lot of fame. I want to be famous, Khyati. Then I want to make money. There has to be a profit, labha. Or I must be honored by my fellow beings in society, puja. Sir, Bhagavan, are you writing this for getting a good name and fame? And she doesn't mince words. We have great reverence for Bhagavan Adi Shankara, but you remember she is an interviewer. She doesn't mince words. She asks, "Are you writing all these books so you can get fame, become famous? Are you writing all these things so that you can make some profit out of it, Labha? Or do you want to be honored from length and breadth of the world? Is that why you are writing?" Beautiful question. Then Adi Shankara, he replies, "Na khyati labha pujartham," not for the sake of fame and name, not for the sake of profit, not for the sake of getting recognition in society. Granthaha asma virudiryate. I don't write these books for that sake. Swabodha parishuddhyartham. So that I want to make sure whether I have understood properly. How many books are there? Please think. Who are writing with this purpose. I want to make sure I have understood properly. Swabodha parishuddhyartham. Second reason, Brahmavit nikashasmasu. You know how we test gold. Gold is rubbed against a touchstone, and the touchstone tells us how good is the gold. And the touchstone the touchstone is actually the wise people, the Brahmavit, those who are knowledgeable in Brahman, those the Brahmajnanis. I want to make sure that they approve. Are they subjected to their wisdom? And therefore, nakhyati labha pujartham, not for the sake of fame, not for the sake of profit, not for the sake of respect and honor. I am not writing for all this Chetana. I am writing this so that it is subject to the analysis of the learned. She immediately saw the benefit. Then the Acharya continued. For making sure that I have understood these deep concepts accurately. That is the reason I'm teaching. Because when I teach all these students, look at all the galaxy of students sitting in front of me. Padmapada, Trotakacharya, they're not ordinary people. They're extraordinary students. And therefore, it is not that they will accept whatever I tell them. They will actually evaluate whether what I am saying is correct or not. And therefore, I am teaching just as the quality of gold is determined by rubbing against a touchstone, I am rubbing against a touchstone of all of these brilliant people. And most of the people are interested in wealth and enjoyment, no doubt. But you must remember that there is someone, somewhere, at some point of time, who contemplates on reality, impervious of wealth, recognition, impervious of that. They are only going after the correct understanding. Chetana, I am reminded of a great poet Bhavabhuti who wrote, Utpatsyate hi mama kopi samana dharma There is someone somewhere in some point of time in posterity who will be of the same spirit as I am, who is interested only in the pursuit of reality and nothing else. So he makes a defense, Acharya makes a defense as to why he is even writing all these commentaries. Something for us to think. Why do we do anything? We do either for profit or for fame and name or for recognition, payment name, recognition, money for that sake. Or I want my legacy to be there forever. With that spirit, people are doing. But these great acharyas are an exception to that. So, as the air of the conversation was becoming thick, suddenly amidst them there appeared a Brahmana and sat in the midst of this assembly. And Chetana she's a very observant girl. She noticed that this Brahmana who came and sat there, had an outlandish charm. He was dark and tall. His eyes were actually shining like diamonds. So he sat in the assembly. The Acharya was so completely absorbed. He was impervious of who was sitting in his assembly. He went on speaking. And because Chaitanya was actually raising the conversation, interrupting, he was responding to her. If she had not, probably he would have continued to simply teach. So the conversation was going on, the teaching was going on. At one point, when the Acharya was commenting on a particular sutra of the Brahma Sutras, this dark, bright Brahmana stood up and interrupted the Acharya. Everybody was disturbed. Said, what an audacity to interrupt this great Acharya. Who dares, when he is speaking, to rise up and stop him? But nobody said anything. And the Acharya was the very, very epitome of compassion. He asked, Sir, what question do you have? A long debate ensued. Much of their conversation was beyond the comprehension of our heroine Chetana, because it was so deep. As the conversation went on for some time, after some time, the Brahmana changed his form. It was the towering figure of Bhagavan Vedavyasa himself. The entire assembly was electrified. Suddenly, Bhagavan Shankaracharya rose up and did what is known as the Dirghadanda Namaskara. Dirghadanda Namaskara is where a person falls at the feet of another, completely on the floor, every part, the 8 parts of his body, Manasa, Shirasa, Urasa, Padbhyam, Karabhyam, Pranamo, Ashtanga Uchyate. A Ashtanga Pranama Bhagavan Shankara does to this Bhagavan Vedavyasa. And Vedavyasa, with a beautiful smile, a sonorous voice, he said, Hey Shankarayati, you have understood the heart and essence of the Brahma Sutras composed by me. And he instructed Shankaracharya, go travel all over Bharata and then protect the Vedic culture. Bless you. It is the blessings of Bhagavan Vedavyasa. It is the tireless effort of Adi Shankara in the ensuing 8 years that even to this day, after 14 centuries, still Sanatana Dharma is flourishing. And still, we are sitting in this assembly talking about Sanatana Dharma. And what an honor for me that this is the 18th lecture. That means for the last 1.5 years, we have been studying Sanatana Dharma in this forum. All because of acharyas of this caliber who did what they did, not for money, not for fame. And then Chetana thought, I am sitting here for the last few days, listening intensely to the Acharya's teaching. I am not a dull person. I am fairly intelligent. How come I don't understand what this Acharya is teaching? When I am actually listening to him, it appears as though I have understood everything. But as soon as I try to recollect after some time, then I am completely at a loss. How can people understand the teachings which are so subtle and so erudite? This was what Chaitanya was thinking. As though Bhagavan Shankaracharya read the mind of Chaitanya and her thoughts, he announced, my commentary on the Brahma Sutras, the Sharirika Bhashya needs a Vartika. So he declares. Chaitanya, by now, because she is sitting with the Acharya all these days, had understood the terminology of Shastra Shikshana Paddhati. Shastra Shikshana Paddhati in Sanskrit means Paddhati is methodology, Shikshana is teaching, Shastra is the scripture. The methodology of teaching and creating scripture is Shastra Shikshana Paddhati. And that methodology is, first and foremost, there will be a sutra. So Bhagavan Vedavyasa wrote the Brahma Sutras. And what is a sutra? It has got certain characteristics. First and foremost, it has to have very, very few letters. I'm not talking about words, very few letters, alpaksharam. And then it must be absolutely clear. There should be no ambiguity, asandigdham. It must be full of substance, saravate. It must have a universal appeal, vishvato mukham. And then sounds and words which have no meaning, you would have seen in many people when they converse, they are groping for words and they substitute it with the sounds which have no meaning, and that is called a stobha. So astobham means there is nirargala, flawless flow, a continuous flow of thought and words is the capacity of a sutra. It is called astobham, and irrefutable anavadyancha sutram sutravido viduhu. So alpaksharam, very few letters. Number one, asandigdham, which has no ambiguity. Number two, Saravat, full of substance. Number three, Vishwatomukham, universal in its subject, as a subject. Astobham, free flowing writing. And Anavadyam, and which is also irrefutable. 6 qualities have to be there for erudite writing and erudite speaking. And that is the quality of Brahma Sutras of Bhagavan Vedavyasa. Obviously, because of its cryptic nature, it is not possible to understand. A bhashya has to be written. And that our Acharya of today's subject, Shankaracharya, wrote bhashya. So what is bhashya? Sutrartho varnyate yatra, where the meaning of the sutra is described by what means padaihi, by words, sutranusaribhihi, which closely follow the teaching of the sutra, swapadanicha, and also one's own words are used. And the sutras words are described. One's own words one uses is also described. Swapadani cha varnyante bhashyam bhashya vido viduhu, of all the bhashyas. In the whole of Sanskrit literature, there are three extraordinarily eminent bhashyas. Number one is Shankara Bhashya, which is also called as the Sharirika Bhashya. Number two, Shabaraswami's commentary on Mimamsa Sutras. And number three, Patanjali's commentary called Mahabhashya on Panini's Sutras. All scholarship agrees that these are the three most outstanding bhashyas. It is to the credit of Bhagavan Adi Shankaracharya that among these three, he stands in Vedanta like a towering figure. So then he has himself declared that my bhashya requires a vartika. So what is a vartika? A vartika is ukta anukta durukta artha vyaktikara granthaha vartikam. That means in the bhashya, some things are not said, presumed, because the teaching is for advanced students, and therefore a few things may be actually presumed. That has to be explained. And some things which are told have to be elucidated. Ukta, anukta. Sometimes it can give rise to misunderstanding. Durukta. All of them has got to be explained, and that is a text called Vartika. And Bhagavan Adi Shankara at this point was interested in having a Vartika written. Why he himself did not write? Because if he himself writes a Vartika on his own bhashya, he would probably not be able to find the Durukta. He may not be able to find, here is where I have not made a proper observation, proper comment. My thought is not complete. He would never know. So somebody else has to write, and that person must be equally brilliant. Then there is a vritti, which is a short glass on the sutra. There is a vyakhyana or a tika, which is a running explanation. And there are notes called tippani. These are the various texts that are developed on these subtle and deep subjects. So Adi Shankara says, somebody else must write a Vartika on my commentary so that that person may be able to point out where I have erred or where I have not communicated adequately. And who is the person? Is one person who can do this. And that person is in Prayaga, today's Allahabad. It has been renamed as Prayagraj. There is one in Prayaga. There is a great scholar of Mimamsa. His name is Kumarila Bhatta. And let us go to Prayaga. So from Kashi, the Acharya starts, I am going to Prayaga. Who can simply say, Acharya, you go wherever you like. I am quite happy here in Varanasi. So when you come back, we will continue our lesson. But look at the brilliance of the Acharya. All the students and even our heroine Chetana also followed. All of them went to Prayaga. In Prayaga, a situation had happened. Kumarila Bhatta, again, we are talking about intellectual discipline. He was practicing the intellectual discipline in his own way. He had actually mastered everything on the Veda and had written he was the greatest scholar on ritual, the branch called Mimamsa. But he was not satisfied with his own scholarship. He wanted to check. What do the Buddhists say? Why is it the Buddhists reject the Vedic ritual? There must be some great reason. And there is a lot of following of highly intelligent people of the Buddha. So I want to know what is it they have against the Vedic ritual. So he actually changes and then disguises himself as a Buddha follower, and he goes and joins the university where Buddhism was being taught. And after completely and exhaustively learning about Buddhism, he started having a debate with his professors, and the professors caught him. You must be a person coming from the Vedic school, otherwise, such questions cannot be asked. And then they were about to, they discovered that he was actually coming there to study Buddhism without becoming a Buddhist. So they wanted to push him off a cliff. And then, as he was pushing, they were about to push him off a cliff. He said, if Vedas were true, let me live. And he lived. And then he started thinking, what did I say? I said, if Vedas are true. I introduced a small doubt by using the word if, yadi, in Sanskrit. He was so full of remorse. So in our Shastra, there is a permission when somebody thinks that he has done an unforgivable sin. It is called as Tusharagni. In Tusharagni, what they do is they bring dried grass, a lot of dried grass, and then put it around. And then the person stands in the center of that grass, the dried grass, and he sets fire to the grass and immolates himself. And when Bhagavan Shankara, Chaitanya, and the whole entourage arrived there, he had just lighted up the hay. And Shankara says, stop, stop, I want you to write a commentary on my Brahma Sutras. And then he shouts back as he was burning, what an unfortunate person I am that I cannot write a commentary on you. My student is there in the Mahishmati, which is present day Ujjain area. There is one Vishwarupa, and that Vishwarupa is also a great Mimamsa scholar, but he will not write a commentary on you unless you win over him in a debate. My time is over. You go there, have a debate. After some time, after a few days, a very distressing news came from the hometown Kaladi. Bhagavan Acharya's mother Aryamba had died. Chaitanya was grief struck. You remember she had met her, and then she had spoken with her. She had seen what a great mother she was. So she was absolutely grief struck. She remembered the wonderful, affectionate hospitality she had received, the guidance she had received for her to go and meet the Acharya. Along with the Acharya, Chaitanya actually followed and went to Kaladi. How could she not? How could she not go with the Acharya and offer her last respects to the great mother? And the Acharya himself, even though he was a sannyasi, cremated his mother because nobody wanted to come and do it. Then the Acharya set to go to Kedara, and then Chaitanya obviously followed. When they reached Kedara, the Acharya taught his extraordinary philosophical hymn, the Dakshinamurti Stotra. In the Dakshinamurti Stotra, the Acharya was saying, Yas sakshat kurute prabodha samaye swatmanameva dvayam. When a guru's grace is there, and when he really wakes up, not waking up from the elemental sleep into the world of transactions, but wakes up beyond the world of transactions. That is prabodha. Bodha means waking up. Prabodha means prakarshena bodha, perfect waking up. When that perfect waking up happens, one discovers Swatmanam eva advayam, one's Atman is the one that is no two. That spiritual awakening, the veil of Maya is removed, and one discovers oneself as no second. This is what Acharya was teaching in the Dakshinamurti Stotra. Yes, Sakshat Kurute Prabodha Samaye Swatmanameva Dvayam. Suddenly Chaitanya woke up from the dream. What a vivid dream. She felt totally refreshed and told herself, I can never see the world in the same way as I used to. I hear the Acharya's voice from my dream ringing, and the Kathopanishad mantra which says, Neha nanasti kinchana. Na iha nana asti kinchana. There is no difference here at all. All that I have seen, Ishvara, whether it is Ganapati or Shiva or Vishnu, Guru that I have seen, Atma, the self, they are only the three visions of the same Murti Bheda Vibhagine. And to him I prostrate. Chaitanya now suddenly realized that she was quoting a Sanskrit verse. She had conversed with the Acharya in Sanskrit in the dream. She had never learned Sanskrit in her life. She did not even know the alphabet. How could she do this? How is it possible that I could converse with the Acharya in my dream in Sanskrit and now I can quote Sanskrit? How is it possible? This is the power of the proximity of Guru, even in your dream. If we are as lucky as Chaitanya, that we can meet an Acharya of the caliber of Bhagavan Adi Shankara in our dream, as the Subhashita says, just as a piece of stone, when it is embedded in gold, it becomes a jewel. Kachaha kanchana samsargat dhatte marakatim dhruvam. And the Guru will make the mute an a orator. Mukam karote vachalam. He will make a lame person jump over the mountain. Pangum langhayate girim. That Guru, Yat Krupa Tamaham Vande. I prostrate before that Guru who gave me darshana and a teaching in my dream, says Chaitanya. And the dream had left an indelible impression on the mind of Chaitanya. She resolved to take up the sadhana. What is the use of all talking where there is no sadhana? So she remembered how Bhagavan Shankara had detailed the method of practice in the sadhana panchaka, and she wrote down a list. Number 1, study the Veda regularly. Number 2, perform my duties. Number 3, I will dedicate all my actions to God. Number 4, I will seek company of noble people, satsanga. Number 5, I will approach a truly wise teacher. Number 6, I will listen very carefully to Shastra. Number 7, I will reflect on its meaning. Number 8, every day, little by little, if possible, I will give up ego. Number 9, I will stop arguing. Number 10, I will endure all the hardships and all the challenges that come in my life. Number 12, I will enjoy solitude. I will discover the fullness of the self, that all is one and there is no two. Ekameva advitiyam, as the Chandogya Upanishad says. And thus, Chaitanya now woke up to the state of wisdom and knowledge. As I said, she was never the same again. With that, we conclude our contemplation on Bhagavan Adi Shankaracharya in this three-part series. Thank you very much for patient listening, and also I thank the Hindu Temple of Greater Chicago for giving me an opportunity to contemplate on this great teacher. Thank you very much. पूर्णमदः पूर्णमिदं पूर्णात् पूर्णमुदच्यते पूर्णस्य पूर्णमादाय पूर्णमेवावशिष्यते ॐ शान्तिः 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 हरिः ॐ श्रीगुरुभ्यो नमः हरिः ॐ.
Ashwat Garu, may I say something, sir?
Please, yes.
My friends, I'm so deeply thankful, and we were so much engrossed of listening to Ashwat Garu today and for last many months. So we think really, Ashwat Garu, we are Chaitanya and you are Swamiji, Shankara, telling us all those wonderful things that we would never be able to imagine, understand, listening. And we think we are really thankful and with your grace and Shankara's grace. Of course, I'm thankful to the temple organization allowing us to bring you to our and talking to us. There are not enough words for me to express my thanks. Thanks, I say, Sri Gurubhyo Namaha. And you have really everything that you mentioned about Chaitanya, about students. We are there, and you are our Guru. You are really Sakshat Sakracharya. And on behalf of the temple organization, all my friends who are listening, hearing Sanat Garu, we thank you very much. We provide namaskara to you and Shankaracharya. We'll continue to hear further lectures in future. Thank you. We are very happy to sponsor this program on behalf of temple. Thank you.
We could not have done anything without Parthiban sir's unflinching, continuous support. Thank you,
Yes,
Parthiban. Then,
Can you hear me?
yes.
We thank you a lot, Ashwatji. So we had some glitches from our side, so we could not communicate. Obviously, our opening prayer. Again, I'll repeat. Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha Harihi Om Bharata America Punya Bhumyau Namo Namaha Agajanana Padmarkam Gajanana Aharnisham Anekadam Tam Bhaktanam Ekadam Tam Upasmahe. Since we also, like Sahapartis, learned, we will say Sahana Bhavatu Sahano Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinhamadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. With that note, we will also pray for our Shanti to all. We also recognize that one of the most devoted persons, Sri C. Ramachandran, who was a manager of the temple, he has left this loka. He was 94 years old, lived a great life, very understated but very humble, and was one of the first managers of the temple, doing anything that was asked him. So we fondly remember him and we pay our tribute. I am sure all our Sahapartis will agree with me. Namaskaram.
I'll be in Chicago this weekend. I'll hope to meet any of our friends in Chicago, and then thank you.
Thank you. Good night. We can end the call now.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Namaskar.
Namaskar. Thank you.